It's custom before we begin Dhamma discussions or Dhamma talks to pay respect to the Buddha. Please repeat with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Last time I gave an introduction, and this time I will repeat some of the introduction, because sometimes it's good to have things repeated. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Please read this. Do you want the true Dhamma to be long-lasting?
Yes.
Okay. Then we are talking to the right people. Now we can give some examples. For example, you go and pay respect to the Buddha Rupa, and you are wearing shorts and just an old t-shirt. Is that respect towards the Buddha? Okay. Number two, you take the chanting book and you put it on the floor. Is that respect towards the Dhamma? So what should you do? What? Either hold it or put it on a cloth, or somebody spend a lot of time and money making little tables. They just stand there, nobody uses them. Right? They put the book on the floor. Right? And so try to just the act of getting up, taking one of the tables and putting the book on. We perform many hundreds of thousands of kusala chittas. Right? It's a kusala. Every little act counts. Then we have the deference towards the sangha. Right? So you are very casual and very friendly, almost patting the bhikkhu on the back. Is that respect towards the sangha? How should we behave towards the bhikkhus? Yes, right? With some distance. Then people are meditating in here, and then we go past outside, talking and laughing. We sit on the bench outside, talking and laughing very loudly. We sit out at the back, talking and laughing very loudly. We sit in the kitchen, talking and laughing very loudly. And there are people meditating in here. Is that respect towards the training? So what should we do? Should not do it, right? Okay. Then the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis are without respect and deference towards each other, right? This is the same, because if lay people are meditating and lay people disturb the lay people, then those lay people are not showing respect towards the lay people who are meditating. And the same, the bhikkhu shows respect towards the lay people in that he tries to follow the Buddha's vinaya, Because many of the rules laid down by the Buddha, very many of the rules laid down by the Buddha laid down because the lay people complained. And it's because the bhikkhus also have to show respect to the lay people. Why do they have to show respect to the lay people?
Because the lay people who are the ones who support in return.
Yeah, very good, right? These people give me robes, food, dwelling and medicine. Do they do it because of faith in me? Why do they do it? Because of faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Ultimately it's faith in the Buddha, right? So these people do offer all these things to the bhikkhus out of faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. It's not out of faith in the individual bhikkhu. Because if the bhikkhu removes his robes, then they're not going to give him anything anymore, right? And so the bhikkhu should respect that faith. Because if he doesn't respect that faith, then things can change. People's faith may tremble. Sometimes they lose their faith. Ultimately, of course, please close the door. Ultimately, our faith is our own responsibility, but the bhikkhus should try to protect people's faith, and the lay people should also try to protect the bhikkhu's faith. Right? So if lay people behave in a very bad way, that can also disturb the bhikkhu's faith, right? Because he thinks, these people claim that they are Buddhists, how can they behave like this? Then the bhikkhu's mind becomes disturbed. Right? So there is not only a material relationship between the lay people and the Sangha, there's also a mental relationship, right? Mutual respect. Without mutual respect, problems. Okay, so that's how the Sangha does not, the true Dhamma does not become long-lasting. And then the Buddha says the opposite, of course, there's no need to read it again, right? And that is when in all these cases there is respect and deference. Please read the last 3 lines. Right? That is when all these things are fulfilled. Then again, last time we quoted this sutta, which is from the Chula Kama Vibhanga Sutta, where the Buddha explains how to become stupid. You want to be stupid? No. Alright, so the way to avoid being stupid is to ask many questions, right? So, he asks not, what, Venerable Sir, is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what is blameful, what is blameless, what should be practiced, what should not be practiced, etc. Right? If we do not ask these questions, we will be stupid in this life, and we will maybe, if we are reborn as a human being, right? Because of not asking these questions, we may do many bad things. Then we may be reborn in hell, or as an animal, or as a ghost. If we are reborn as a human being, we may be stupid again, and we don't understand the Dhamma. So, the Buddha advises us to ask questions. Why am I telling you this? Yes? Yes, many lay people don't ask questions. In the West, people ask too many questions, and in the East, people ask too few questions. Right? So you should ask questions, clarify your doubts. Now today you have an opportunity, there's a bhikkhu who is willing to ask your questions. Please don't hesitate. Right? If you want to be rude, that is up to you. The bhikkhu does not take offense. If you want to ask rude questions, stupid questions, clever questions, whatever, please just ask them, clarify your doubt. Okay? Okay. Now, first question.
Okay, Bhante, the following question is regarding interaction with bhikkhus. is it proper to come to the center, interact with bhikkhus, dress in shorts, dress sloppily?
Okay, first question, is it proper to come to the center to interact with bhikkhus dressed in shorts, dressed sloppily? This we discussed already last time, but it's useful to repeat it. Now, Sadhu Umahinda is a teacher of this center, and he has written a book in Chinese about the Vinaya and the behavior, proper behavior for lay people towards bhikkhus. That book was translated into English by somebody, and some of the text is on the website of this center, and there Sadhu Umahinda has written, please read. Which are the important words here? Right, so you come in sloppy clothes. Is that a sign of good upbringing? No. Why would one want to come in sloppy clothes, wearing shorts and looking unpresentable? Why would one want to do that? Easy, convenience. Yes? Right. Do you think it's convenient for the bhikkhu to be wearing these robes? I'm asking you a question. All right. It's very inconvenient. When we go out of the meditation center area, when we go into the village, the Buddha says we have to cover our body completely. It doesn't matter whether it's cold, hot, wet, or whatever. Do you think it's convenient for the bhikkhu to be fully covered when it's very hot? Why does he do it anyway? Respect for what? Again? Yes, very good. Respect for the Buddha's instructions and respect for the lay people, right? Because the lay people's faith does not increase if they see bhikkhus sloppily dressed, right? The Buddha has laid down many rules. Your lower robe must be like this, it must not be longer than this, it must not be shorter than this. The upper robe must not be longer than this or shorter than this, it must be arranged like this. When you wear full robes, it must be like this and like this and like this and like that, right? So everything the Buddha has laid down in details. Is it convenient for the bhikkhu? No. When the bhikkhu pays respect to the Buddha Rupa, or he pays respect to the senior monk, or he listens to the Dhamma, then he wears his robe covering the whole left side of him, so no air can come in. You think that's comfortable? No. You listen to the Patimokkha and listen to admonition. Sometimes in my monastery, you sit for 2 or 3 hours in the boiling hot summer heat, and you are fully covered on your left side, and you are perspiring like the Victoria Falls. Do you remove it? No. Why not? Yes, right? And so, when we listen, for example, when we listen to the Patimokkha, we sit like this maybe for an hour and a half. This is out of respect for the Buddha's teaching. Is that going to make the sasana last long? So, if the lay people try to emulate the bhikkhus in the way that they can emulate the bhikkhus, is that detrimental to the sasana or is it good for the sasana? Right. So, convenience is not kusala. Usually, convenience is akusala. Why? Because convenience has to do with comfort. It has to do with sensuality. It is the domain of Mara, right? So now you can see all over the world, people are becoming more and more and more conveniently minded, right? It's more convenient to steal than to work hard and make money. It's more convenient to be rude to one's parents than to be respectful towards them. It's more convenient to bomb a country to pieces and make a lot of money out of it than try to make peace in other ways. Right? Convenience is always the excuse for a lot of akusala. So, when we wear improper clothes, children is something else, because in school they usually wear shorts. I checked today. In Singapore, usually children wear shorts. And so that is considered all right for children to do it. It's still better for them to learn not to do it. But you reach a certain age in school, then you don't wear shorts anymore. And then one should not go to the monastery in shorts. Then one may say, but we wear shorts in the shopping center. Yes, but the monastery is not the shopping center. Right? The meditation center is not the shopping center. And so convenience is not an issue. It has to do with, what was the word you all mentioned? Respect. Right? When we come to the meditation center sloppily dressed or wearing shorts or whatever, right, was also impropriety, sometimes bare shoulders, showing off the women showing off their breasts and all sorts of things, right? That is, when people see that, some people are not happy to see that. Why? When we see somebody else being disrespectful towards the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, does that make us happy? No. So that is how our behavior affects other people. If we behave very beautifully, if we are dressed very properly, if our behavior is admirable and dignified, showing our good upbringing, then other people, they become happy and they think, very good, right? And also, by our good behavior, we can inspire other people to behave well. By our bad behavior, we can inspire other people to behave badly. Because, for example, you turn up at the meditation center wearing shorts and some kind of athletic shirt, then another person might think, I thought I couldn't wear that in the meditation center, but he's wearing it. And nobody says anything. Well then I can wear that. It's much more convenient. And then the other person copies the bad behavior. And then somebody, two people are wearing like that. Then it's all right. Right? Because the bhikkhus don't say anything. Why not? Why don't the bhikkhus say anything? Yes, they don't want to offend, right? And also, we are not policemen. Bhikkhus are not policemen. We can't go around and say, you must do this, you mustn't do that, right? We just put a sign up, right? Please try to, and people don't, okay? We can't do anything. And then we have maybe a questions and answers session, and then we can say something, okay? Because you have come here of your own desire, and then you will not take offense. So, when we are sloppily dressed, it is a sign of little respect for ourselves and little respect for other people, because we affect other people by our behavior. When there is a sign that says, please dress properly, and we still continue, then what? What kind of mind ignores the sign? Then there's more than disrespect, right? There's defiance. Who are they to tell me how I am going to dress in the meditation center? That is not a good mind to go to the meditation center with. And then lastly, I can mention that if you look at the Pali texts, you can see that in the Buddha's time, when the people went to the monastery, they were dressed differently than when they were at home. There's even kings. For example, King Pasenadi, somebody explains some Dhamma to him, and then he arranges his robes, everything very nicely, and then he pays respect to the direction where the Buddha is. Right? So this business of convenience and sloppy dress is not kusala, and it's not anywhere in the Pali text.
The second questions.
Just a moment, I just want to check. Okay.
Yeah, second question. Is it proper for lay devotees to engage in loud conversations in the center or in the presence of the bhikkhus while they are partaking food.
Okay, in the center. The meditation center here is not a monastery because it's very difficult to do in Singapore. But to all intents and purposes, it is a monastery. It is to be regarded as a monastery. It's not to be regarded as a social center. All right? So, let's have a look at what the Buddha says about the bhikkhus' behavior in the village. Please read just the English. This is some rules in the Vinaya, right? They are recited every Uposatha. They are what are called, they are part of the 75 Sakyas which are included in the Patimokkha. Now, why do you think the Buddha laid down these rules? You can all think, and so you can all give an answer. It may be right, it may be wrong. Please answer my question. Decorum, yes. Because the Buddha never lays down a rule unless something has happened so that there's a reason for laying it down, right? What do you think happened for the Buddha to lay this rule down? That's correct. So what occasion do you think arose for the Buddha to make this rule? Because something happened and then the Buddha made the rule. Because all the rules the Buddha lays down in the Vinaya, something happens and then he lays down the rule. He never lays down a rule until something has happened. What do you think happened? Yes, very good. Right? Some bhikkhus went laughing loudly among the houses, that means in the village. And then some lay people complained. And they said, they're behaving like lay people. Right? How can they go around laughing loudly like lay people? Right? They're no different from us. And then usually this would reach other bhikkhus. And then the conscientious bhikkhus would also say, how can these bhikkhus go around laughing loudly in the village? And then it would reach the Buddha. And then the Buddha would summon those bhikkhus. Did you go around the houses laughing loudly? Yes, Bhante. And then he lays down the rule. Okay? So, why does the Buddha want the bhikkhus to follow these rules? Yes. It all comes back to the first quotation, which is respect towards the lay people, then the sasana can last long. So that when people see a bhikkhu, his behavior is different from a lay person's behavior. Or it should be, right? Then of course, sometimes the bhikkhu may forget, then it's not an offense, right? But he should try to remember. Now let's try to make an experiment. Let's try to, please take the first one and then say, I shall go, right? Please don't say not. And then say, in the meditation center. Please read the first one and don't say not and then say in the meditation center. Finish. If you are in this center, you think this must be one of their rules. Right? Because this is something we hear every day in this center. From behind, from in the kitchen, from along here, even upstairs in the bhikkhu's quarters. Right? I shall go laughing loudly in the meditation center. I shall sit laughing loudly in the meditation center. With big sound I shall go in the meditation center, and with big sound I shall sit in the meditation center. This is a good training. So, the bhikkhus must not be noisy in the village. Then we put a mirror and we turn around and then we say, in the same way the lay people, the bhikkhus should not be noisy in the village, the lay people, yes, right? It's a mirror. Right? So that when you're in the village you behave one way, when you go to the meditation center or you go to the monastery, you behave in another way. The same with the bhikkhus. Right? In the monastery they can behave one way, when they go to the village they behave another way. The lay people in a village they can behave one way, when they go to the meditation center they behave another way. Right? There's a clear distinction. Why? You've repeated the word many times? Right, okay. Okay, then we will take another quotation. Does anybody know what the first monastery was that was offered to the Buddha? There are some people here who are very clever, they know a lot about the Dhamma. What was the name of the monastery offered by King Bimbisara to the Buddha? Yes, Veluvana, the bamboo grove, right? This was the first monastery that was offered in our Buddha Sasana. Right? King Bimbisara invited the Buddha and Sangha for dana, then he gave the dana, and then he reflected, because he wanted to offer a place for the Buddha to be and for the Sangha to be. This is King Bimbisara's thoughts before he offered Veluvana. Please read it. Don't read the Pali. Okay. Then we have the analysis of these words. Right? So it said here, for example, first, accessible for people to come when they want. Then we look at the analysis. When they want, what does it mean for the people to come when they want? What is the purpose of their coming to the monastery or to the meditation center? Please read. Right. In the Buddha's time, the lay people did not go to the monastery to meditate, right? But that is, we can say that's included in going to listen to the Dhamma, right? So, for going to the monastery or the meditation center when they want means going to pay respect to the Buddha, or going to listen to the Dhamma, or we could say also today it could be for meditation, it could be for giving dana. For example, in my monastery in Myanmar, if a person arrives, then they have to report to a certain place, and then the bhikkhu there asks, what do you want? That's the first question. I want to visit my friend. That's not a valid reason. You cannot stay here. I want to meditate. Okay, please go and discuss with that person. I want to give dana. Okay. I want to listen to Dhamma talk. Okay. Right? The reason has to be a proper reason. What do you want? I have come to the monastery because I want to cook some delicious food to sit and eat together with my friends. Is that a good reason? That is not a reason to go to the meditation center. That is not a reason to go to the monastery. It has to be something to do with the Dhamma. Okay, then number 2, the analysis, right? It says, at night, I'm sorry I type the word with twice. At night with few sounds. Then let's look what the Buddha, how the analysis is in the commentary. At night with few sounds. What does it mean? Right. So, in the meditation center, in the monastery, a suitable place is where is not the sound of talking at night. And there's not the sound of the mortar and pestle. Dong, 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 dong. Why? What is the sound of the mortar and pestle? What does it represent? Sorry? Yeah, it represents the household life. That sound represents the household life. The sound of children represents the household life. Right? What has the bhikkhu done? Did he go forth into the Sangha to listen to household sounds? No. He went forth into the Sangha to be away from household sounds. So what should one not be doing in the meditation center? Okay, please read it again. So are those sounds suitable in a meditation center? So we should try to restrict them. Right? You want to give dana, you bring your children, okay, fine. You want to prepare a little bit before you give dana, fine. You are preparing food the whole night, is that good? Is that a suitable environment for the bhikkhus? You are preparing food in the morning, is that a suitable environment for the bhikkhus? So, the meditation center, it is for whose residence is the meditation center? Is it for the lay people to live in or for the bhikkhus to live in? Right. So the environment should be suitable for lay people or suitable for bhikkhus? Right. And that's why we're quoting this, right? Because that is the kind of environment that the lay people should try to establish in the center. Why? Just to make life difficult?
Because it's the holy place.
Very good, very good. Yes, exactly. And the bhikkhu goes forth from the holy life and then he goes to the meditation center and there are women shouting all day and there are children everywhere and there's the sound of the mortar and very busy and big party atmosphere. His windows are just up here, down here people are having a big party every day. Is the bhikkhu going to be happy there? You want to make the bhikkhu unhappy? Okay, then you understand why it should be like that. Then we have the last one. Little noise, right? Here, the Buddha says, at night with few sounds, little noise. What does little noise mean? Right? The sound of the city here is not very loud because the traffic is just like a hum. It's not very loud. But there's a lot of noise inside the meditation center. Sometimes the noise is very loud, right? So that sometimes I'm 3 rooms away from the kitchen, and if I could speak the languages they speak, I could give a verbatim account of what they were talking about. I can understand every single word. Because why? What have people done? They've completely forgotten that they are in a meditation center. Right? The household mentality has taken over. And they just walk in as if this was not a meditation center, and then big party atmosphere. Sometimes it's noisier than in a marketplace. It's not even a coffee shop would be more quiet. So this is a suitable behavior in a meditation center? No. Then, for example, we can do that afterwards. Okay, let's take the next one. This is the Buddha's advice to the Venerable Mahamoggallana, who later became a great disciple of the Buddha's, a chief disciple of the Buddha's, and this is the Buddha's description of the kind of places that he thinks are suitable for the Sangha. Please read. Who says this? Who says this? No, because he's talking to Moggallana. So who says it? The Buddha says it. You want to follow the Buddha? Right. So, this is a kind of place you should try to make the meditation center. Because you can't make it perfect because it's sitting right in the middle of Singapore. But you should strive to make it a place like this. And does the Buddha praise much association between the bhikkhus and the householders? Morning, noon and night. Talking and talking and talking and talking. Does the Buddha praise that? Please look there. Does the Buddha praise it? No. Then we have talking while the bhikkhus are eating. This is the bhikkhu's rule, another rule laid down by the Buddha. Please read the English. What does it mean, bold perception, the asked food I shall eat? It means that when the bhikkhu eats, he's not concentrating fully on the bowl, but he always has the bowl in mind. Now, if a lay person comes up to the bhikkhu and starts talking about politics, can the bhikkhu eat with perception of the bowl? So, is it suitable for people to sit and talk to the bhikkhu while he's eating? Is it suitable for people to be talking with each other while the bhikkhu is eating? Why not? Yeah, and then we go back to the first quotation today. It's disrespect. It's disrespectful. Right. And also, when you go to give dana, is it just like going to play football or going to the cinema? Is it that kind of thing? So, please describe the difference between going to the cinema and going to give dana.
Going to the cinema, you are watching the movie, so the movie is example like a war movie or maybe a fighting, so it's a different kind of environment. When we are in different kind of environment, we react in different way. So in the temple, we must react in a respected way. So in the cinema, we are enjoying life. Like we are shopping, we have to be relaxing, enjoying shopping.
And so why do you go to the temple to give dana?
Dana, one thing is to want to pay respect to the Sangha unity and to cultivate our charity.
Why do you want to cultivate charity?
So in our future life we will be happy.
Okay. Okay, you want to do kusala, you want to do punya. When you go to the cinema, you don't do kusala, you don't make punya, you do akusala and apunya, right? So the purpose of coming to the meditation center to give dana is to do kusala. Right? Everybody comes to do kusala. Then, first you chant, you take the precepts. Why do you take the precepts? You do something every day, you don't know why? Why do you take the precept just before you give dana? It increases the kusala of the dana, right? Because the Buddha explains when the giver is pure, right? That's why you take the precept before you give dana. Then you chant the qualities of the Buddha, etc., and you ask the Buddha for forgiveness, and you ask the Dhamma for forgiveness, and the Sangha for forgiveness, and then you go and give dana, and most people are very, very respectful, and everything is very beautiful. Then they go and sit down. Some of them turn their back to the Buddha, And then they sit and do what? Chat. About what? That is kusala. So, when the layperson has given dana and goes and sits down and starts chatting, that layperson is disturbing herself or himself. That layperson is disturbing the person she or he is talking to. That layperson is disturbing the other people who are in the room. And the layperson is also disturbing the bhikkhus. Right? Because this happens very often. So this person has given dana and wants to meditate after the dana, but can't meditate because these people over here are busy chatting. And these people over here are busy talking on their telephone. Is this a cinema atmosphere or is it meditation center atmosphere? What? Right. And so this is the way the Buddha says, when we do akusala ourselves, we invite, if we do akusala with somebody else, we invite that other person to do akusala. So we have done two akusalas. And then we may even praise akusala, right? Why shouldn't I sit and talk with my family in the meditation center? Right? I need to do that. So we have three akusalas, right? And you may be disturbing many people each time you're doing akusala, right? Because you don't care about other people. So, is that a suitable behavior when you give dana? Same with meditation. People are meditating here, busy chatting about all sorts of things, making a lot of noise, disturbing. We disturb ourselves, we disturb the others, right? That's the way we do akusala in two ways. And we can see it very frequently. People arrive, they're very respectful, and then one person begins to talk to the bhikkhus, very loudly. And then it's the same as with the shorts. Then the others think, oh, it's okay to sit and talk in front of the Buddha Rupa and in front of the bhikkhus. So then this person begins to talk, and then this one, and then in the end we have a marketplace. And everybody's talking because they think, it's all right. Because the bhikkhus don't say anything. Why don't the bhikkhus say anything? Because they're not policemen. Right? And we can't say, shut up, you mustn't talk while we are eating. We can't say like that, because that would be improper, right? Because people would get upset. And so it is the duty of the people themselves, self-discipline, to control their behavior so that it's different in the meditation center from the village, in the same way that the bhikkhu's behavior is different in the village than it is in the meditation center. Okay, then we take the next one. No. Here. Talking about, what do people sit and chat about when they sit and chat with the bhikkhus while he's eating and with themselves? Please read this, don't need to read the Pali. Right. The beginning is the Buddha's description of what is called sampapalapa. Sampapalapa, it is kusala or akusala? Akusala. It's one of the four kinds of verbal akusala. And we see here, the Buddha says it's without end. Why is it without end? You're all very clever people. Why is it talking sampapalapa without end? That can be that it just increases the excitement. Okay, then I'll try with an example. You want to buy a banana, okay? You go to the fruit shop and then you say, I want a banana, they give you a banana and then you go out. Does that act have an end? Right. Why does it have an end? It has a specific purpose. Right? I need a banana. When I've got the banana, the act is finished. Sampapalapa, why is it without end? It has no purpose. So it has no beginning, has no middle, and has no end. And that's why you can very often see lay people go to see the bhikkhu, and then they sit and talk for half an hour, 1 hour, 1.5, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Once a Pausara, people were talking with him for 5 hours about nothing, zero. And he got very, very tired. He gets very, very tired. Bhikkhus get very, very tired when people come and talk to them about nothing at all. Right? So what kind of things should one talk about with the bhikkhus? Either the Dhamma or nothing. Pleasantries is all right, right? Maybe you come and offer dana once a year, you see the bhikkhu and then there are a few pleasantries. That is not sampapalapa, that's just politeness. The Buddha did the same, right? But going on and on and on and on and on, right? About nothing at all, is that kusala? It's not kusala, it's akusala. What is the subject of sampapalapa? Please read. You recognize it? Right. Right? Instead of kings, we can say prime ministers or presidents. Right? Instead of criminals, we can say, well, I don't know what we can say, right? But all these things are what we talk about, right? Bhante, this just happened in Myanmar, right? Now they've done this and this and this. That's this kind of sampapalapa. And so, who made this list? This is the Buddha's list. Right? This is the subject of aimless talk. Now, this is just a guideline, because sampapalapa, the talking of engaging in sampapalapa disappears only when one becomes an arahant. Right? Even an anagami will still engage in sampapalapa. And sometimes the people come, they begin to talk sampapalapa with the bhikkhu. Some bhikkhus want the lay people to be happy and comfortable. So they're very friendly and they continue the conversation. Some bhikkhus don't want to and they're not very friendly and don't continue the conversation. Right? So it's not easy to say, this bhikkhu is no good because he's talking sampapalapa. It may very well be he's trying to put people at ease, right? But there it is the duty of the lay people to control it, right? Because it's akusala to go on and on and on and on and on about it, right? But if the bhikkhu doesn't engage in a bit of sampapalapa with the lay people, some lay people will get angry with him. Some lay people will be afraid of him because he doesn't talk all this rubbish with them. And then the bhikkhu who is very friendly and talks a lot with them, then other people get angry with him, right? So it doesn't matter which way it is. And this the Buddha explains in the Dhammapada. Please read the English. Right? So, very difficult sometimes for a bhikkhu because If he doesn't say anything, they get angry, and if he does say something, then they get angry, right? But usually people get angry if the bhikkhu doesn't engage in sampapalapa with them. And so very difficult, because then it, as you said, then it runs out of control, and then it goes on and on and on and on forever. Okay, now I finished.
Okay, Bhante, is it proper for bhikkhu to demand respect? Is it not better for bhikkhu to gain respect by setting exemplary conduct? For instance, in strict observance of Vinaya, diligence in the practice of meditation, not initiating talks with laity?
Okay, is it proper for a bhikkhu to demand respect, right? I demand respect from you lay people. And is it not better for him to set a good example and to practice the Vinaya and all that? That's not a question, that's an admonition, right? This person is not asking a question. This person is saying bhikkhus should not demand respect, they should inspire by good behavior and practicing the Vinaya, etc. Right? So this is not a question, this is an admonition. There are many questions like this. People ask a question, but it's not a question. It's an admonition. So we don't need to respond to that one.
So go on to the next one. What is the appropriate way to pay respect to Bhante when we encounter one in public places such as airport?
That is completely up to you, right? Some people, they don't do anything. Some people, they put their hand in Anjali. I've even seen people do Vandana on the ground. I've even seen people do Vandana on the road. I saw once a Myanmarese gentleman. The Pavasara came out of the airport, and then he put his head on the Pavasara's feet and held his ankles. Right? That's also very kusala, right? So it is up to you what you want to do. If you want to, you can also be rude if you want. That is completely up to you what you want to do. The Buddha doesn't really lay down very many rules for the lay people. It is because it must come from within, right? And so it's not difficult to understand how one should behave. Some people don't want to pay respect, do Vandana to the bhikkhu in a public place because they feel that others might laugh at them. Some people don't care about that. They want to do Vandana in a public place even though other people will laugh at them. It's all different. We all have different dispositions.
Okay, the next question. Because of the difference in one's respect, liking to individual bhikkhus, one will usually show different kinds of attitudes and treatments. Is it all right as long as one's mind has no or little akusala, or one has to strive for perfection and try to treat all bhikkhus equally?
It is perfectly natural for people to have preferences among the bhikkhus. But is this all right as long as one's mind has no or little akusala? If we are not respectful towards a bhikkhu, then will be akusala, because there will be disrespect. There will be asadha, right? So one should try to make sure that one is equal in one's respect towards all bhikkhus, but there will be preferences, right? Even bhikkhus have preferences, right? There's some sadhus we go and see and we are enormously respectful, and then there's some sadhus we go and see. We are still very respectful, but there's not that same enormous faith, right? But there is a certain procedure that one should follow with one's bodily action and one's verbal actions, and that one should do the same towards all bhikkhus, right? One should not relax one's behavior. And there, for example, if you go to Sri Lanka, then the Sri Lankans will tell you that only Sri Lankan bhikkhus are real bhikkhus, all other bhikkhus are not real bhikkhus. Then you go to Thailand and they say that only Thai bhikkhus are real bhikkhus and all other bhikkhus are not real bhikkhus. And you go to Myanmar and then they think only Myanmar bhikkhus are real bhikkhus, other bhikkhus are not real bhikkhus. And then you might even go to a Western country where they say, the Asian bhikkhus, they are stupid because they believe in rebirth and they believe in ghosts and they believe in they're stupid bhikkhus. And then you only believe in Western bhikkhus. This is not a good way to think, because if a man has a proper upasampada, he is a bhikkhu, and his country is immaterial. The Buddha never says that only bhikkhus from a certain country are real bhikkhus and everybody else is not a real bhikkhu. Because the Buddha himself is not from Myanmar, he's not from Sri Lanka, and he's not from Thailand, right? He's from India. So this is a good thing to try to avoid this habit of regarding bhikkhus as only being from a certain country. Okay, next question.
Bhante, is it proper to answer one's mobile while taking the precepts, offering food, listening to Dharma talk, talking to a bhikkhu?
Okay, is it proper to answer one's mobile? What do you think? Why not? Disrespectful, right? Very often people come to the bhikkhu, then they ask a question and the bhikkhu is explaining. And then what do? They answer it. Are you going to believe it? How can you answer the telephone? Even if it was a layperson, and you're sitting and talking with a layperson, and the layperson is explaining something to you, and then you answer the phone. How can you do that? What should one do? What should one do in order not to answer the phone? What? Yeah, just turn it off. Very easy. I had a man that came to see me. He is not a Buddhist. He'd never seen a monk before. And then his telephone rang. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he turned it off. And I said to him, "I have not experienced that in my 16 years as a monk. I have never experienced somebody who said, 'I'm sorry,' and turned the phone off." Right? Very often people, then the telephone rings and then they walk out of the room. Which is, there is some kusala in that, because they want to not disturb. Right? But you're in the middle of a sentence. And then they walk out of the room. Right? So is it proper to sit and talk on the mobile phone in front of the Buddha, in the presence of the bhikkhus while they are eating, upstairs in the bhikkhu's room while he's explaining some Dharma to you? Is it proper? So what should you do when you arrive at the meditation center? Yeah, but then of course you forget that, that's natural, right? But then when it rings, you turn it off. Because it's like if you're sitting talking with somebody and that person is explaining the Dharma to you, and then somebody across the road says, "Hey," and then you say, "Excuse me, Bhante," and then you cross the road and go over and talk to them. It's the same. Because, I'm sorry, I don't need, this telephone is more important than you, Bhante. So this is not proper behavior. Okay, next question.
The following questions are regarding female devotees. First one, Bhante, could a bhikkhu initiate giving Dharma talk without invitation to a male or to females?
Okay, so this section is about bhikkhus and female devotees. Now the Buddha explains that there's one thing in the world which attracts a man more than anything else, and that is the opposite sex. The sight, the sound, the odor, the flavor, and the touch of the opposite sex. And vice versa for women, right? So it works both ways. And if you try to make a statistic of what is the chief reason why bhikkhus disrobe, what do you think is the chief reason? I'm not talking about bhikkhus who are monks just for 1 or 2 years or 1 or 2 weeks, right? But a bhikkhu who's a bhikkhu for a couple of years, maybe 10 years, sometimes 20 years, even 30 years. What is the main reason why they disrobe? Women, right? A woman. A Canadian monk in Thailand once, a Canadian layman in Thailand once told me he was a monk, and when he ordained, all these women came to his kuti and asked him to marry them. Right? So, the reason why the Buddha wants there to be a distance between the bhikkhus and women is this problem. It is to protect the bhikkhu's holy life. And it's the opposite with bhikkhunis, right? The Buddha says the same with bhikkhunis. Bhikkhunis must keep a distance from men, right? Today it's Seales. So Seales should try to keep a distance from men. And that way, women should always keep in mind, when they're with bhikkhus, that they should try to protect his holy life and behave in a way that is suitable. And men should do the same when they associate with Seales. And if we quote the Buddha's words about the relationship between bhikkhus and women, women may get upset. So I'm asking permission from all the women here to quote the Buddha's words about how bhikkhus and women should associate. Will you give me permission? You will promise you will not get upset? Right? Because please remember, the Buddha means the same for bhikkhunis. Right? It's just that now we're talking about bhikkhus because there are no bhikkhunis anymore, but there are seles, and so we should regard it in the same way. So let's take the first one. This is what can happen when there's frequent association between bhikkhus and women. Right? More and more, in English we have an expression, familiarity breeds contempt. Right? In the beginning the woman is very, very respectful, then more and more association, then they become more and more friendly, more and more, and then they become familiar, and then maybe problem. That's why familiarity is very dangerous between bhikkhus and women, and in fact there should not be familiarity between bhikkhus and lay people under any circumstances, because the bhikkhu is not the layperson's friend, right? Because you don't do vandana to your friend. And that's why one very good way of keeping a distance, respect, right? Because is to be formal, right? Formality is a sign of respect. Friendliness is not a sign of respect. And that's why, for example, in my case, I always address people by Mr. and Mrs. just to keep it formal. But also because I think it's rude to address people by their first name when I don't even know them and they're not my friends. Right? And so, should try to keep a distance and be formal towards each other. Then we have the next one, which causes a lot of problems. This is the Venerable Ananda in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, right? Not long before the Buddha attained Mahaparinibbana, the Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha a number of questions, and these was one of his questions. Please read. So, should a bhikkhu initiate conversation with a woman? No. If it's a woman that there's been some association with, right, maybe she gives a lot of dana, then the bhikkhu hears, her father just died, right? Then it would be impolite for the bhikkhu not to say, sorry, that's not a good example. Her father is sick, right? Then it would be impolite for the bhikkhu not to say, how's your father, right? That's just a polite interaction. But to begin by engaging a woman in conversation, that's completely improper, because the Buddha says, should not look at women, should not address them, only respond. Right? So if the woman comes and wants to give dana, okay, you respond. If the woman comes and asks questions, you respond. Wants precepts, you respond. You don't. The bhikkhu must not begin, because then it becomes dangerous. And that's why there are rules that keep the bhikkhus and the women apart from each other, to protect the bhikkhu's life. 23:25. Then we go on to the next quotation. Once Visakha, you know Visakha? Visakha was the Buddha's chief female disciple. Right? There's an introduction there. Please read it, the whole thing.
Once the lay woman Visakha saw the venerable Buddha sitting alone on the private seat with a woman, in such a place as to allow of physical misconduct. Another time she saw him in such a place as would allow verbal misconduct. In both cases, he explained that he was speaking Dhamma to the woman. Then Visakha said,
Just a moment. Right? In both cases, the bhikkhu was actually explaining the Dhamma to the woman. He wasn't engaging in anything, in any sampaparabha or talking improperly to her, anything. He was actually explaining some Dhamma to her. And then Visakha said, okay, so what is Visakha worried about? Don't look at me, look there. Sorry? Yeah, but what is she worried about? Yeah, misunderstanding, right? Because what happens if somebody misunderstands it? They generate a lot of akusala, right? They generate disrespect towards the bhikkhu. They might think, oh, what is he doing, right? And that's exactly, right? Then the Buddha, you can read. Right, so unconformable means that it does not conform with the four paths, four fruitions and Nibbana. Right? It does not conform with the holy life. Unascetic means that it is not suitable for a samana. Right? You can see the word asamanakam. Samana means an ascetic. Right? It's not suitable for an ascetic to behave like that. And then, this is the Buddha still. Right, that's exactly what this lady was saying, misunderstanding. And then, will the sasana be, does it help to make the sasana long lasting? Right, because even those who have faith, they may, right, begin to have doubt. What is going on here? Why is the bhikkhu behaving like that? So this is the background for two rules in the Patimokkha, which are called aniyata rules, where it says that if a laywoman, a respectable and reliable laywoman, says that a bhikkhu has sat in private alone with a woman, or just sat in private, then the Sangha may, if it wishes, it may investigate this bhikkhu. If he agrees, right, the bhikkhu may say, okay, we can have this investigation. And he, right, the laywoman may suggest that he may have committed a very serious rule called parajika, or he may have committed a sangha, he says, which is also very serious but not as serious, or may have committed a pachitiya offense. Right? So this is called two undetermined rules, because they depend on an investigation, discussing with the bhikkhu, what did you do, etc., 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 and then they might reach a verdict, oh well, he didn't do anything improper, he has not committed an offense, or they might decide, he has committed an offense. But whatever the case may be, whether he has committed an offense or not committed an offense, the Buddha still says it is inappropriate, it's unconformable, it's unsuitable, it's unesthetic, it's unallowable, it's not to be done. Then we have the Buddha's analysis of what he means, right? Because he says, how can you, hollow man, occasion sitting with a woman? Then he analyzes what does he mean by woman. Please read it. Okay. Then the Buddha said, how can you, hollow man, occasion sitting with a woman, one-on-one, in private? What does he mean by private? Okay. So the Buddha said, sitting with a woman in private on a concealed seat. What does he mean by a concealed seat? Okay, now, this room, is it completely open? It's concealed by what? Door, curtains, wall. That's about it, right? And if the bhikkhu is here alone with a woman, then is it private from the eye? Right? There's nobody can see. Is it private from the ear? Right? Private from the ear means you can't hear what they're saying. That's this room, upstairs. So, right? Because if you go in, then nobody can see it, nobody can see you, nobody can hear what's going on. So that's the Buddha's analysis of those words. Then we have another occasion. Please read it. Now the Venerable Upananda was talking Dhamma to this woman, but the husband misunderstood it. Did he make kusala with this? Does he have kusala chittas arising? The husband has kusala chittas arising? No. What kind of chittas are arising in him? Yeah, dosa mula chitta, right? He's angry. Right? How can he do like this? And then the same thing happened. The Buddha was told about it, right? First, lay people heard about it, they complained, and the bhikkhus heard about it, and the conscientious one says, how can the Venerable Upananda do like that? And then the Buddha heard about it, and then the Buddha gave Venerable Upananda the same scolding, right? That this is inappropriate, unconformable, unsuitable, unesthetic, unallowable, not to be done. And then, again, the Buddha said, it does not inspire faith in the faithless, it does not cause an increase in the faithful, it inspires faithlessness in the faithless, and even the faithful may be disturbed by it. And then the Buddha analyzed it. Then the Buddha laid down a rule. This is a pachitiya rule. Please read, no, I'll do it, right? Yopana bhikkhu matu gamena sading raho patichanne asane nisajang kappaya pachitiyanti. Right? Yopana means whatever, bhikkhu means bhikkhu, matu gamena, with a woman, sadi means with, raho in private, patichanne concealed, asane, on a seat, nisajjang, sitting, kapeya, should occasion, right, it's a verb, pachityang, there's an offense of expiation. Now please read the English. Right, that is one rule. Then on another occasion, Venerable Upananda, same problem, but he's not sitting on a concealed seat, he's sitting one-on-one in private. Please read the second rule. And then, the Buddha always lays down non-offenses, which means the offense is only an offense if certain things have taken place. This is the same with law, civil law, right? If these things have taken place, then there's an offense. If these things have not taken place, then there's not an offense. And there are many more non-offenses than there are offenses. This is something also that many people don't know, right? For each rule, many things, if this factor is not fulfilled, there's no offense. If this factor is not fulfilled, there's no offense, etc. So the Buddha laid down the rule, and then he laid down what is non-offenses. Please read. Right, if the bhikkhu is the first offender, it's because a bhikkhu does something and there's no rule, right? Then he cannot have offended against the rule because there was no rule, right? He's just done something wrong, and then the Buddha lays down the rule. After that, any bhikkhu who does it, he has an offense, right? So the first bhikkhu has no offense. Then if he's mad, right, his mind is deranged, also no offense. If he's distracted, also no offense. And then if the bhikkhu does not enjoy, does not desire privacy, that's one rule. And then if the bhikkhu does not enjoy, does not desire being one-on-one in a private place, that's another rule, right? And then if the bhikkhu stands, does not sit, and if a learned man is present. Why do you think the man has to be learned? Yes, creditable witness. He has to be somebody who understands what's going on. Because if the bhikkhu is sitting with a woman and he's making improper speech with her, if it was somebody who doesn't understand the proper behavior of a bhikkhu or doesn't understand what's going on, right, then it can't prevent it. So here, does the Buddha say if another woman is present? So does the Buddha say it's a non-offense if there's another woman? No. And here, because the Buddha doesn't say that if there's another woman, he only says if there's a learned man present, then in many, many cases in the Vinaya, it's not cut and dried. Because many things in the Vinaya now, we're not absolutely sure what is this situation. Does it cover or does it not cover? The Buddha isn't alive anymore. We look in the commentary, it isn't explained. We look in the sub-commentary, it isn't explained. Right? So, some bhikkhus, they say there must be another man present. They're following the rule, and also because even though there may not be an offense against the Vinaya, it is still inappropriate, unconformable, unsuitable, unascetic, unallowable, and not to be done. That's one way that some bhikkhus read it, right? They have a wide reading. They say, okay, it's improper for a woman to be alone with a man, even if the bhikkhu doesn't desire privacy, it's still inappropriate, unconformable, unsuitable, unascetic, unallowable, and not to be done. Right? And then some people say, oh, but I don't have any desire for privacy. And they haven't committed an offense. And then they may say, but there's another woman. And we can't say they're wrong. It's just two different ways of interpreting it. So what do you think the woman should try to do to make sure that the bhikkhu's vinaya is completely safe and that nobody will misunderstand anything? What should the woman do? She should be in a public place or have a man present. Right? That is the woman's duty. It is respect for the bhikkhu's vinaya. Right? Because very often the Buddha says this is not proper, this is improper, this shouldn't be done. But he doesn't lay down a very strict rule because the bhikkhu can't begin to fight with people. Right? So that the bhikkhu is sitting there, then a woman comes in, and then he can't say, get out of here! Right? He can't do that. Because maybe she comes, she wants to give dana, she wants to offer something, or she wants to ask a question or something. Right? And he can't do that. And that's why very often the bhikkhu ends up in a situation which is improper. Because he can't begin to scold the woman. Right? She's come to make kusala. And that's why it's a woman should try to look after the bhikkhu in this case. Right? And then in some cases, for example, the bhikkhu might just walk out of the room or say, let's discuss it in a public place and go to a public place. Sometimes even that is difficult because there is no public place. And so the woman herself should try to protect the bhikkhus, and it's in fact to protect the sasana, because make sure that everything looks all right, so that there's nobody who can misunderstand anything. Right? And so if there's a man, then okay. And there may be cases, for example, the woman wants to offer something, there is no man anywhere. Then, number one, she can come another time. Or she wants to ask Dhamma questions. There is no man anywhere. Then she can come another time, or she can make an appointment. Right? But if she wants to offer, then some people say, okay, you just stand outside the door and offer through the door. Don't go into the room. Right? Because it's a quick exchange, right? But one should make effort to find a man. And if a man doesn't want to come, then explain to him, but it's not proper for me to go and see the bhikkhu alone. Right? And so that is where the woman should not do what is convenient. Right? We're right back to the beginning of this discussion. Wear shorts because it's convenient, but it's not proper. And it's the same, the woman should not just go ahead because it's convenient. She should try to make sure that everything looks all right, that everything is appropriate, conformable, suitable, ascetic, allowable, and something that can be done. Okay, then we can go on to the next question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Could a bhikkhu initiate giving Dhamma talk to males or to females? It is usually not suitable for a bhikkhu to give a Dhamma talk without anybody asking for it. Because their mind may be somewhere else. Right? So the layperson is sitting here, she's sitting with her back to the Buddha, she's playing on her telephone. Then the bhikkhu should not begin to talk Dhamma with her, because her mind is on the game. Right? Maybe the person is driving and they haven't asked the bhikkhu to explain any Dhamma or anything, they're thinking about something else, and the bhikkhu should not begin to discuss Dhamma unless they have asked. And for women, the bhikkhu should not initiate Dhamma talk with a woman more than, right, the rule is more than 8 Pali sentences, but in any case, right, the bhikkhu should wait until, if the woman asks questions, the bhikkhu can give a long Dhamma talk, and the rule is not more than 8 Pali sentences, but 8 Pali words. But in the Buddha's time, they spoke Pali. So the rule is not more than 8 Pali words. Then, if the bhikkhu doesn't do that, he doesn't have an offense. But still, it's improper for him to give a Dhamma talk in any language, because in the Buddha's time, they spoke Pali. That was the language they spoke, right? And so, it's not proper. And another problem is, for example, in a car, people are driving, and then they ask the bhikkhu a question about the Dhamma. And then they're wearing shoes. What does the bhikkhu do? Because the Buddha says, please read number 61, 62. So what does a bhikkhu do when somebody is driving him somewhere and then they ask a Dhamma question and the person is wearing shoes? What does he do? Sorry? Yes, right? So he can just keep silent, and then what can happen? Then the person gets angry. Why isn't this bhikkhu answering my question? I'm asking first a valuable Dhamma question. How is the sasana going to last with bhikkhus behave like this and blah 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 blah? Right? And that's why again the lay person should try to prevent the bhikkhu getting into this difficult situation. Because very often the bhikkhu doesn't know the person who's driving. The bhikkhu doesn't know how they're going to react. But I can give one story. I was on an aeroplane from Penang to Singapore, and I was sitting next to an old American gentleman, and he was very friendly when I sat down, and how are you, and so on. And then he asked me about my life as a bhikkhu. What do you do? What is the purpose of your life? And then I said to him, as politely and friendly as I could, I said, I'm very sorry, I'm not, to answer that question I shall have to explain to you the Buddha's teachings. And the Buddha does not allow me to explain his teachings under all circumstances. There are certain circumstances where I'm not allowed to explain the Buddha's teachings. And he said, yeah. And I said, one of the circumstances I'm not allowed to teach somebody who's wearing a hat, because he was wearing a baseball hat. Right? And what did he do? He removed it. And then I said, and another thing is that I'm not allowed to teach somebody who's wearing shoes. And what did he do? He removed his shoes. Right? Now, that's because I could see that this man is very gentle, very polite, and you say it in a very friendly way. And then he asked many intelligent questions. For the whole flight, he completely forgot his wife, to look after his wife, and then suddenly he remembered his wife was sitting next to it, and he said, oh, I'm sorry, I need to talk with my wife. Right? And so, sometimes the bhikkhu can say to people, I'm very sorry, I can't. Bhikkhu can say it in a very friendly way. But sometimes you don't know, because the person who's driving you or whatever is not very polite, is not very, their behavior is not, you're not sure. How will they react? And then you can keep quiet, and then they may get angry. And so you're in trouble, right? Whatever way you do it, you may get into trouble. And that's where the layperson should try to make sure that this situation doesn't arise. Okay. Microphone.
Hello. If you're in a situation where a bhikkhu is in a car, there's a driver, and the person asking the question, say, seated behind, is without shoes, is that appropriate for the Venerable to answer the questions? Does everybody listening in have to be without footwear, or just the person asking the question?
The person asking, you can overhear people who are improperly dressed can overhear the answer.
Okay.
So, for example, some bhikkhus, right? For example, you have to give a Dhamma talk to a group of people, and then some of them are wearing shorts, some of them are wearing a hat, some of them are clasping their knees, right? And a problem. Then, and the bhikkhu can see it, and then he before the Dhamma talk, then he says to one person, right, now you sit right in front of me, and I'm going to address my Dhamma talk to you, right? And then this person will sit properly, behave properly, and then they address the Dhamma talk to that person alone, and then the others are just overhearing. This is a way to avoid any problems, any offense, but it's still better if everybody is respectfully dressed, everybody is sitting respectfully, everybody, right? That's still better, because the bhikkhu may, right, he's concentrating on this person and suddenly he begins to talk to this person because he's concentrating on his explanation, and so it's not so good, right? So in one way it's okay, in another way it's better to do it another way.
Sorry, I have another question.
Yeah.
When you were referring to female devotee having a male with her when meeting a venerable, is it okay if the male is of a homosexual tendency?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Because there's a word in Pali called pandaka, and the bhikkhu is not allowed to associate with a pandaka. A pandaka cannot ordain as a bhikkhu. And then many say that pandaka is a homosexual, but that's not correct, because in the commentaries it's explained 5 types of pandaka. And the first type is a homosexual, the second type is a voyeur. A voyeur is a person who likes to see other people having sexual intercourse. And then the third type is one who changes sex, the fourth type is a hermaphrodite, and the fifth type is a eunuch. And the first 2 types, homosexual and voyeur, they can become bhikkhus. They do not count as the unallowable type of person for a bhikkhu to talk with or associate with. Okay? Any others?
First question, is a sun shader, like I got eye problem and cannot have a strong sunlight, wearing a sun shader, not a fully one, is it considered a hat?
Okay, this is a question about whether a sunshade is suitable or unsuitable, right? If it is here, read number 66 please. Right, so if it's a question of health, then it's okay. But if it's just a question of convenience, then it's better to remove it. I can't hear you.
Strong sunlight.
Okay, then that is a health problem, right? So that if you don't wear it, then you will become ill or whatever, and so then it's allowable. And then if that is the case, then you say to the bhikkhu, I'm very sorry, Bhante, I'm wearing this because I can't take it. And then the bhikkhu knows this person becomes ill if they don't wear it, and then it's allowable.
Because sometimes I forgot to pick out.
Yes. No, but that is that.
Not intentionally.
Yes.
Another question, Bhante, is just now talking about a woman, a bhikkhu, one-to-one with a woman cannot be in a confined space. What if it is many bhikkhus but one woman?
That's perfectly all right, because
is it okay?
Hopefully one of the other bhikkhus will be a wise man, a learned man, right? Because bhikkhus are also men. So that's perfectly all right. Yes. So, for example, a bhikkhu can go in a car alone. 2 bhikkhus can go in a car with a woman, because a bhikkhu is also a man, right? Right? And the samana is also a man. And just to mention with this, right, wearing a sunshade, very often people forget to remove it because they're not in the habit of being respectful towards the bhikkhus, right? They just are not in the habit. If one is in the habit, then one automatically removes one's headgear. So it has very much to do with one's habitual behavior when one is in association with bhikkhus, right? Because many times people offer food and then they have no idea how to do it, and I just say to them, it's because you don't have enough practice, right? Meaning, you're giving very little dana, right? You're busy enjoying sensual pleasures. And the reason why you don't know how to do it is because you never do it. And so, one reason why one forgets to remove things is because one is not in the habit of remembering these things. Okay, next question.
Okay. Bhante, is it proper for bhikkhu to engage in private or personal talk with a female?
What do you think?
No.
No, a bhikkhu should not. There should be no, right, we can go back to this. Right? There being familiarity, there's degeneracy, right? Must not be familiarity. The bhikkhu must not engage in private, personal talk with a woman and even with a man. Right? Because, for example, a bhikkhu should not be discussing, people should not go to the bhikkhu with their family problems. They may ask something on principle, right? So there may be a problem, and then they may ask, if there's this and this problem, what does the Buddha say? That's okay. But if a man or a woman goes to the bhikkhu and says, I have problems, for example, a woman says, I have problems with my husband because he does this and this and this and this. And then the bhikkhu says, yeah, your husband is wrong and your husband is bad and your husband shouldn't do that, right? Then she goes back to the husband and Bhante says that you are wrong and you shouldn't do that, right? Then the husband will get angry with the bhikkhu and vice versa, right? That's why the bhikkhu should not get involved in such matters. If people ask questions on principle, okay, but they should not involve him in personal matters. Okay?
Next question. What is Bhante's view on monk enjoy mixing and talking to female followers on a mix of Dharma and mostly non-Dharma topics?
Right. What is Bhante's view on monk enjoy mixing and talking to female followers? How do you know he's enjoying it? Right? This is a very frequent problem, especially in the city. Right? The women come, and then they begin to talk with the monk about all sorts of things, right? Half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, and what can he do? Right? Very difficult for him. Some monks, it's easy, right? And again, different monks, different personalities. Some monks find it very difficult to stop the conversation because their disposition is a very friendly, very warm, very gentle disposition. Some monks, it's not so difficult. They say, I'm sorry, now I need to meditate on now, right? Some monks, they just answer the question and then they don't say any more, right? And then some people get angry with them and other people get angry with the others, and that's the way it always is. So the lay people should try to protect the monk and avoid these situations. Because it's very easy to criticize, but you don't know what the monk's mind is. You don't know if he enjoys it. He's smiling and being friendly because we have to be friendly, right? But that doesn't mean he's enjoying it. Maybe he's thinking, oh, when are these women going to leave? Oh, right? You don't know. Okay.
Next one. We understand that it is proper for a bhikkhu to have interactions with a female so long as there is a male around. What is the reason for having a male? Must the male be an adult? Must the male understand the content of interactions between the bhikkhu and the female devotee?
Okay, all this has been answered, right? Yes?
The next one.
Okay.
Under what circumstances could a bhikkhu be alone with females in an open area?
Right. Under what circumstances could a bhikkhu be alone with a female in an open area? Right. If it's concealed from the eye, right, other people can't see what they're doing, or other people can't hear what they're doing. If the bhikkhu is standing or walking, then it's allowable. That was in the rule, right? Here. If the bhikkhu stands, does not sit, then it's allowable. Because there again, Very difficult sometimes. And the woman comes up to you and, oh, what am I going to do, right? Because you can't say to her, no, 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 go away. Oh, you can't do that. And then sometimes the bhikkhu stands up or something like that. And there, the lay woman, for example, a lay woman may sit here and she's talking to the bhikkhu, and then there's some people over there. And it's all right. Then she sees that they leave and they're alone in the room. Then what should she do? Then she should get up and say, okay, Bhante, this is enough for today, and leave. She should try to protect the bhikkhu and look around and see it's not proper. There are some women who do that. They are, right? There are women who know that it's not proper for a bhikkhu to be in an enclosed space alone with a woman. So even when they're going to drive the bhikkhu somewhere, then they wait until the bhikkhu and another man is in the car, and then they get into the car. Right? And that's because they understand what is the proper way to behave. Okay?
Next question. Is it okay for one female devotee to speak to a bhikkhu alone in the Dharma hall, as long as it is open space where people can walk in and out, even though there would be periods of time when there will be nobody else but the bhikkhus and the single female lay person?
Okay, this has been answered, no?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not enough that the place is public. There has to be other people there, okay? And there again, sometimes the bhikkhu, he's caught, right? And then it's difficult for him. And then you may see him and then you start criticizing him. And he's enjoying talking, but it's because he's in a fix. He doesn't want to be rude to the lady. She may get upset. And that's why then sometimes it happens, and it can be very difficult. Okay?
Next question. Could a bhikkhu travel in a vehicle in a company of two females?
Right? According to one way of reading it, no. Another way of reading it, yes. Right? So it depends. Some people say yes because there's another person. Some people say no because the Buddha says there has to be another man. And so, my teacher always says, if in doubt, don't. Right? Some, they say if in doubt, do. My teacher says if in doubt, don't.
Next question. Is it okay for two female devotees to speak to a bhikkhu inside a room? Or is it better to still have the presence of a male even if there are two female lay devotees?
Again, yes and no. Okay? Because it's better to have a male even though there are two females, but some will say it's not a problem because there's two females is allowable, right? And that's because the Buddha didn't explain it. That problem didn't arise, and the Buddha didn't tell us how to do. Okay?
Okay, the next question. Is it allowable for a bhikkhu to communicate with a female lay person by A, mobile phone, B, SMS, C, Skype, online messaging services, D, email? As this could allow private conversation between a bhikkhu and the lay female devotee. Any issue with the Vinaya, please? If so, are there any ways that the female devotee can overcome to make the communication, which is sometimes necessary, allowable? For example, to copy in other persons into an email communication. What about other modes of communication above?
This is a big problem now, because now the world has become very communicative. And it's not proper for a bhikkhu to sit talking on the telephone with a woman, but at the same time, we can't find anything in the Vinaya that says it's improper, that it's against the Vinaya, but it's not proper. But the sasana depends on women, right? Most of the food that is offered by women, and most of the work that is done by women. And this the Buddha also says, right? Because that is the nature of women. And so, a lot of the work that needs to be done with monasteries, etc., is done by women. And then now, people need to talk on the phone. Then the best thing to do is keep it simple, short, and try not to do too much. Because the Pavasada once told me, he talked to a Mahatera who lived in Australia, and he said there are women on the phone all the time and all improper talk. Right? And then again, very difficult. I have solved the problem by having no telephone. Right? I don't even know how to operate a telephone, and I don't want to know. Because then, because it's not just talking with women, it's talking with any layperson. It's not proper to sit and chat with the bhikkhu on the telephone. Right? And also you have the problem, the bhikkhu is standing, you're sitting in your sitting room with a TV on, your children playing around you, maybe you have a glass of whiskey, right? And you are disrespectfully dressed and you're talking to the bhikkhu, he's standing up, right? That's also no good. So try to minimize it and try to keep it simple. All these complications about sending copies to others maybe. Okay.
Next question. Is it okay for a female person to hold the umbrella to provide shelter for a bhikkhu, or must it be a male?
It doesn't look good for a female to hold an umbrella over a bhikkhu, but there's no rule that says I am not aware that there's any rule that says a woman shouldn't do it. And so there again, yes and no. Right? Because when there's a problem, usually people criticize the bhikkhu, right? They don't criticize the layperson, right? He's enjoying having a woman hold an umbrella over him, right? Or he thinks he's so important he needs somebody to hold his umbrella over him, right? But he hasn't done anything. But this is human nature, even in the Buddha's time. It's always the bhikkhu who gets the blame. Okay?
Okay. The next few questions is pertaining to listening to Dharma talks. The question is, as organizer for Dharma talks, what would be the relevant Vinaya rules that the organizer should be aware of and should take note in order to protect the Dharma speaker?
Okay. What Vinaya rules should the organizer of Dharma talks be aware of to protect the bhikkhu? These rules. I will not teach Dharma to one with an umbrella in hand, a staff in hand, a knife in hand, a weapon in hand, wearing non-leather footwear, wearing it should be the first one should be leather footwear. Wearing leather footwear, wearing non-leather footwear, in a vehicle, one lying down who sits clasping his knees, wearing headgear whose head is covered, one sitting on a seat while I am sitting on the ground, one sitting on a high seat while I sit on a low seat, one sitting while I am standing, one walking behind while I am in front, one walking beside a path while one walking on a path while I am behind the path, beside the path. That is the rules that one should be aware of. And I have to this day never ever experienced anyone who got angry because I explained to them that they should remove their shoes. Right? I can see no reason whatsoever why a bhikkhu shouldn't be able to go to give a Dhamma talk in a stadium and then explain to the people that the Buddha has laid down all these rules out of respect for the Dhamma, and please remove you can say it in a very friendly way. Why would they object? Right? What reason could they have to object? No reason at all. And many people would be very happy to do it. And so there should be no problem. Okay, number 17. Sorry.
Pertaining to these questions, how about for those lecture room where the seats are actually like a stadium, the seats are going up,
That's
and
true.
the stage at the bottom, we cannot organize there, right?
Yeah, this is a problem. This is a major problem. But it depends. Some people say, this is the modern day, blah, 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 and we don't need to follow that rule. Some people say, I'm sorry, I can't give a Dhamma talk there.
Next question. What is the proper conduct in listening to Dhamma talks? In particular, what are the don'ts?
Right, the don'ts are all those I just showed you. Right, for example, clasping your knees while listening to the Dhamma is disrespectful. Wearing disrespectful attire, right, wearing shorts, etc. Talking while there's a Dhamma talk. Eating while there's a Dhamma talk. And right, once somebody asked me a question, and then the person I was with I began to explain, And my explanation was going to go like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. And then I began, and then the person who was with me began to began to answer the question instead of me. That's completely improper, right? So, and talking on one's mobile phone is also improper. It all has to do with what we had in the beginning, respect. Okay?
Bhante, there's another point when we are listening to Dharma talks. I think it's not in the don't list. It's when our legs should not point to the Buddha Rupa or to the teacher.
Your feet should not point towards the speaker or towards the Buddha Rupa. That's not a rule in the Vinaya, but that is in the Buddha's time. That was considered disrespectful. So even though it's not in the Vinaya, it's still improper.
Okay. Next question. There are some external venues for Dharma talk where the audience would be wearing shoes. Can the bhikkhu still give the Dharma talk to this audience? Any skillful way to do this?
Okay, this I already explained, right?
So they must take out the shoes.
This is.
Okay. Next question. I understand that a bhikkhu has to be seated higher than the listeners when expounding the Dharma. Can a seated bhikkhu expound the Dharma to a standing listener, whereby the listener's head will be higher than the bhikkhu?
This is irrelevant. It has to do with the seat, not the head. Right? So, for example, there are some sutras in the Tipitaka where a bhikkhu gets up to ask the Buddha a question. Right, so he stands up and he says, I would like to ask a question, and then the Buddha says, okay, ask a question, but remain seated in your seat. And then the commentary explains it's because this was a teacher, right? He's maybe a Mahatera, and he's come to see the Buddha together with all his disciples. Then if he stands up, they can't remain seated. That is, it's in the Vinaya for bhikkhus, right? If your preceptor walks into a room and you're sitting down, you have to stand up, unless you're eating, right? So, in this case, he stood up, and then all his disciples have to stand up, right? Then confusion. And that's why the Buddha then says, ask a question and remain seated in your seat, meaning to prevent all his disciples from standing up. And so, this relationship between sitting down and standing up, and then seated on a higher seat, is a very old tradition, and it exists even in the West. Right? Now, of course, in the West, everything is thrown out of the window, and in the East, they're also gradually throwing everything out of the window. But for example, the Queen of England, when she gives her speech in Parliament, her seat is higher than her husband's seat, because she's the Queen. Right? So it's a very old sign of respect to give the teacher or whoever the higher seat and to remain on a lower seat. Okay?
Bhante, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So even if we ask Bhante a Dharma questions one-to-one, we also have to follow all these...
If you're sitting on the same, it's okay. Same level is okay. But you shouldn't sit on a higher level than the bhikkhu, unless you're sick, right? For example, once one of my dayakas had an accident and he went to hospital, and then he asked me to come and see him, and he couldn't move, right? Then I stood next to the bed and gave him his Dhamma talk. And he's lying down, I'm standing up, but that's okay, because he's prevented from standing up. And so my Vinaya is all right in that case.
So if Bhante is sitting, I'm standing, I should not ask a Dharma question?
Yes, standing is all right. But you should not sit on a higher level.
Oh, okay.
Standing is not disrespectful.
Okay.
But if I'm standing and you are sitting, then you shouldn't ask.
Okay, it's
right?
a seat,
Right, because that's here. Sorry. Here. 70. Please read it. Right? But you can stand and ask, and the bhikkhu is sitting. That's all right. Okay?
Yeah, any questions? Okay, if there's no question, we will go to another category of questions about Vinaya. Okay, the question is, what is Bhante's view on Vinaya rule? Cannot touch money, but monk has a fat bank account.
This is a very good question. Right? Bhikkhu cannot handle money, possess money, touch money, but he has a great big fat bank account. Okay. Now this is a very good question, but the person who asked the question doesn't understand what the system is. A bhikkhu cannot have a bank account. But first let's look at the rule. Please read. Okay, this is called the Mendaka allowance. Mendaka was a very, very rich man in the Buddha's time, and he went to see the Buddha and he said, I am a very busy man. I want to make punya, I want to give dana, but I don't have time. Would it be possible for me to leave money with somebody for a certain bhikkhu, and then that somebody, then the bhikkhu can ask that somebody for requisites, and then that person can buy requisites on my behalf and offer to the bhikkhu. That way I make merit and I become happy. And the Buddha laid down that rule. This is called the Mendaka allowance. Right? But who has the money? The steward, right? The kapya or whatever name we give it. Right? It's not the bhikkhu who has the money. The bhikkhu cannot have a bank account, right? Bhikkhus do have a bank account, but that's another type of bhikkhus, right? But a bhikkhu who follows the Vinaya cannot have a bank account. It's impossible. It's the lay person may have a big bank account for the bhikkhu, with money that people have offered for this bhikkhu, for requisites for this bhikkhu. And the Buddha doesn't make any limits. The bhikkhu can have $1 million on dedicated to him. But it's not the bhikkhu's money, it is the dayaka's money. And it is the kapya who holds the money and is in charge of it. And what happens very often is the kapya steals the money. Right? This is not unheard of. And right, the bhikkhu can't do anything. And there's another rule in the Patimokkha. Please read. So what does the messenger do? No, read it here. What did the messenger do? The messenger wanted to give the money to the bhikkhu, right? May the Reverend One accept the money amounting to the price of a robe. Then what does the bhikkhu have to say? Yeah, a bhikkhu cannot accept money. Then Okay? This is a procedure. So, if one wants to give money to a lay person to hold on behalf of a certain bhikkhu, so that the bhikkhu can ask that person for requisites, then one cannot ask, right? You come with the money, and then you say, Bhante, I want to this money I want to give I want to give to you. Then no, I can't accept money. Then one can't say, oh, but then what will I do with the money? The bhikkhu can't tell the lay people what to do with the money, right? The proper question is, who is the Venerable One's kapya or aramiku or upasaka or whatever, right? Somebody, a lay person who can hold the money for the bhikkhu. But the bhikkhu cannot say, give it to that person. Not allowed. Only ask, who is the Venerable One's kapya? Then the bhikkhu say, that's my kapya. Right? So the bhikkhu is not allowed to give instructions regarding money. He's only allowed to point out the kapya. The same thing is also, if somebody comes with money, right? This happens with people who have no experience with the Dhamma, and they gain faith, maybe they listen to a Dhamma talk or something, and then they want to offer money, because they don't know. And the bhikkhu can't say, I can't accept, but you can give it to this man, and then this is not the proper time to explain that. Then the bhikkhu just say, I can't accept money. Then what am I going to do with it, Bhante? That is none of my business. Right? And then maybe they will not give the money to anyone. And that is also not the bhikkhu's business. And then again, if they really want to, then they will find somebody and say, I want to do, what to do, the bhikkhu won't accept money. You do like this. But it's not the time for the bhikkhu to explain it. That is the wrong time. Okay? Any questions about that?
The bhikkhu doesn't have a pakya.
We don't ordain for requisites. We ordain for nibbana. And the thing is also that the lay person who really wants to do things will find a way. The lay person who just, all right then, if that's the way it's going to be, I'm not going to give you anything. Right? That lay person is not does not desire, has a very strong desire to do kusala. I remember once I was in Sri Lanka, and I was going from one monastery into town, and I was going to take a bus. In Sri Lanka they have bus coupons for monks, and you can use those bus coupons on the government buses. Right? Most of the buses are private buses, very few buses are government buses. And I was with a Mahatera, and a man drove us. They had offered, they were going to offer the dana the next day, and he drove us down to the bus station, and he didn't know anything. Right? Then we got out, and he said, here, you can take this bus, Bhante. So we were two bhikkhus, right? And then the Mahatera said to him, no, this is a government bus. We are traveling with coupons. We can only take government bus. We will wait for the government bus to come. And then the man took out his wallet, and then he took out money, and then he very respectfully, Bhante, please accept this so you can buy a ticket on the private bus. Right? He wants to do kusala. Right? And then the Mahatera said, we don't accept money. Oh, then he put his wallet back. And then he started walking up and down. Right? We're just standing there waiting. And he's walking up and down. You can see he's thinking. Right? Because he wants to do kusala. And then he comes up and he says, Bhante, if I buy the tickets and I give you the tickets, can you go on the private bus? And then the Mahatera said, we accept tickets. Right? And so that's an example of somebody who didn't give up, right? I want to do it. How am I going to do it? And then they find a way. Okay.
Okay, next question. If a monk says, offer me a drink, is it breaking Vinaya rule?
If a monk says, offer me a drink, is it breaking the Vinaya? It depends. If he has a pavarna, right? So maybe he comes to a place and then the Mahatera there says, these are the kapyas, anything you need, you can ask these kapyas to get it for you, or maybe the kapya gives us a pavarna, then the monk can say, please give me a drink. But if there's no pavarana, nobody has said, please ask, then the monk should not offer me ask for a drink. If the monk is sick, he can ask for something to drink, even though he doesn't have a pavarana, but it's recommended in the Visuddhimagga that he does not ask even though he's sick. Okay?
Okay, next question. If a monk requests to go to certain park or tourist attraction places, is this breaking Vinaya rule?
Yes, a monk should not go for entertainment, should not go to the cinema, should not go to the theatre, should not go to tourist attractions or anything like that. Because there's a sutta called the Dvida Vitaka Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha explains that when he was a bodhisattva, he divided his thoughts into two types, right? Nekama thoughts, right? There are three types of vitaka, kusala vitaka, and three types of akusala vitaka. I'll just take the first ones, right? So the first akusala vitaka is kama vitaka. The first kusala vitaka is nekama vitaka. Kama vitaka is when there's a thought with the intention for kama sukha, sensual pleasure. Sensual pleasure through the eye, through the ear, through the nose, through the tongue, through the body. And then nekama sukha is the opposite, where you don't seek sensual pleasure. And there the Buddha explains that when he was a bodhisattva, he decided only nekama, not kama sukha. And the commentary explains that this referred to when he was a bodhisattva in the forest, and then he saw all the beautiful birds flying. That was not kusala. When he saw all the beautiful trees and the beautiful flowers, not kusala. Because if one looks at a flower and thinks, oh, what a beautiful flower, that is not a kusala thought, that is an akusala thought, because the flower is not beautiful. But if you see a flower and you think, oh, what a beautiful flower, I want to offer it to the Buddha, that's kusala. Right? You may also, for example, here, the devotees in the Singapore Center, sometimes they offer the most fantastic flowers, right? And then you see them and think, what beautiful flowers for the Buddha, right? So that what you're looking at is the fact that these people have bought such beautiful flowers for the Buddha. That's kusala. You may also want to offer flowers to your teacher or to the bhikkhu or whatever. That's okay. But to go, to say I want to go and see, I don't know the tourist sites in Singapore, right? But
Sentosa.
What?
Sentosa. Sentosa.
What? Sentosa.
Yeah.
Right? The people can't say, I want to go and see Sentosa, or I want to go and see the skyscraper or whatever. This is not a proper object for a bhikkhu to seek. And sometimes it happens that bhikkhus want to, right? And then I had a dayaka who asked me what to do, and I just said, well, just say you're busy, you don't have time. Because you don't have time. You don't have time to take the bhikkhus to do things that are improper, right? So you should not take bhikkhus to see tourist sites, for example, going at night somewhere to see all the lights and all that. That is not a proper object for a bhikkhu, right? But you can take a bhikkhu to a park if it's for exercise, right? Because, for example, here, very difficult for a bhikkhu to get any exercise. Sometimes people invite us to somewhere, and then we go for a walk. That's for exercise. That's okay. And may take a bhikkhu to pay respect to a certain Buddha Rupa or a pagoda or whatever. That's all Dhamma. But just tourist sites, that is not a suitable place. Another thing that might be suitable would be that, for example, if I ever went to Germany and somebody asked me anything you would like to see, Bhante, I would say, I would like to see all the cemeteries from the First World War. Right? That would be to evoke nibbida in myself, to see all these terrible things that people have done to each other. That could also be regarded as a proper, it's a tourist site, but it's a tourist site that evokes some understanding of the Dhamma. Okay?
Next question. Yes.
Bhante, what if another monk has invited a bhikkhu out to these improper I mean, to these sites like for sightseeing.
So a bhikkhu invites another bhikkhu to go sightseeing. Yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Who's driving the car?
A devotee.
Well, then you just say, I'm sorry, I don't have time.
Okay.
Because it's completely improper.
Can you please kindly bring this bhikkhu to some sightseeing? If we saying that I don't have time, it's in a way that it's musawada to us. So what is the proper way? By in a way we don't want to say no to the bhikkhu, but another way we don't want to musawada.
I don't know.
Maybe we can offer to say, maybe we can bring you some other places, like places of a temple.
Well, there are no temples in Singapore that are worth going to. No, because either they've got wrong view or they handle money and all that. And so the thing is that sometimes lay people want to do it because they want to extend hospitality as a sign of friendliness, right? But it's just not proper. And in your situation, I don't really know what you should do. I don't want to recommend anything.
Yeah.
Then what you can do maybe is another time. Then you can, but I have a question about the veneer, right? And then I didn't copy the rule. There's a rule where bhikkhu shouldn't go to art galleries and things like that, right? And then you can ask about this question, and then you can ask, is it proper for bhikkhus to go sightseeing, right? And then the Mahathera might say, no, it's not proper, right? And then you leave it like that, and then maybe the Mahathera will think, well, maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe he will do it again, I don't know. Okay?
Yeah. When is it allowable for bhikkhus to wear slippers, sandals, and when is it necessary to be barefooted?
The Buddha does not allow bhikkhus to wear sandals outside the monastery. And that's again because the lay people complained, right? But if a bhikkhu has a good reason for it, first of all, sickness or the eventuality of sickness, he can wear sandals. So for example, I wear sandals in airports because I know from experience that the floors in Singapore airport are very cold, and then I get a stomachache. And then, for example, here in Singapore I go for acupuncture. Then I wear sandals because I don't want to turn off acupuncture with dirty feet. He might not be very happy, the acupuncturist. And I might go for massage and he's going to give me foot massage, and then I also want to make sure my feet are clean, and so I will wear sandals. But otherwise, a bhikkhu should not wear sandals outside the monastery unless it makes him sick, or he is sick, or there's another valid reason. Dirt is not a valid reason. Right? So when a bhikkhu goes for Pindabata, the road may be very dirty, but the road was also very dirty in the Buddha's time. So that's not an excuse for wearing sandals. Right? But sometimes I've in Penang went for Pindabata and I got glass in my foot. Right? Then I wore sandals for a few days until the wound was healed, and then I went round the other way afterwards. Any questions about that? Okay.
If it is hot or raining while the bhikkhu is outside, is it allowable for the bhikkhu to use umbrella to protect from the sun or the rain, or should the lay person hold the umbrella to provide the shelter instead?
A bhikkhu can use an umbrella to protect his robes from being damaged. Right? Would use an umbrella outside the monastery. He should not use an umbrella in the village, right? But to protect his robes, he can use an umbrella to protect his robes, and he might also use. He should not use an umbrella to protect him against the sun in the village, and that's why he's allowed to use a fan. So you can see sometimes in Park when we go to the village for Pindabata and it's very hot, And we carry a fan, and then we hold the fan to protect us against the sun. Whether a layperson should hold the umbrella, that is depends on whether the layperson is Abhivadana Silisa Nitya Buddha Pachayino, which I explained last time, which is that the layperson has a disposition to provide service for the bhikkhu. Some people want to hold the umbrella for the bhikkhu, some people don't want to, and that all depends on one's own disposition. Right? Okay?
Bhante, I have a question. How
Yes.
about raincoat? If like in Pa'ao, when there is a raining season, the
Bhikkhu is not allowed to wear lay people's clothes.
Okay, that considered as a lay.
Bhikkhu is not allowed to wear lay people's clothes.
Okay.
And so,
Okay, next question.
except socks. Bhikkhu can wear socks, and you can wear no, I think socks are the only thing he's allowed to wear.
How about shawl?
That's the Buddha allows that. Buddha allows bhikkhu wearing a shawl, he can wear a blanket, he can put a cloth over his head, but not lay people's clothes with sleeves or pockets or trouser legs or shoes. He's not allowed to wear that.
Okay.
Bhante, I have a question.
There's a question there.
If let's say there are Western monks who stay in very cold country, cold weather, and they still have to go Pinapat during winter time, where it's sub-0 degree. So what should they do at that time?
Well, then they should go back to their home monastery in Thailand and go Pindapata there. No, but it has to do with Patirupa Desa, right? A proper place, a suitable place, right? And so, some will say that they should break those rules in order to propagate the Dhamma. Some say that you can't propagate the Dhamma by breaking the rules. Right? So you've got two schools, because some say, how can you teach the Dhamma by violating the Dhamma? Right? If the Buddha says you can't do this, then how can you teach the Dhamma at the same time as you are breaking what the Buddha said you should not do? And so, problem.
Okay. Any question?
Bhante, I have a question regarding socks. Is there any particular material that cannot be worn by the bhikkhus?
Not as far as I know.
Wool?
Sorry, there is. Human hair cannot be used, and feathers cannot be used, and maybe lions, thread made of lions, hair, horse hair, bear hair, things like that. But silk, cotton, wool, what else is there? Right? Plastic, all this plastic they now use. That, as far as I know, is completely allowable. And there's also no particular color, because there's no rule about that. But it's not suitable to give a bhikkhu bright orange socks or anything like that.
There's a question on behalf. Bhante, what is the length of the clothes? I guess it's blouse that women should wear. I think the concern here is these days our fashion, they wear very short blouses so that when they raise their hands, you could see the flesh or the waist. So is that considered proper?
Well, you don't need a bhikkhu to tell you that. You know yourselves what is proper and improper.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Bhante, I have a question, Bhante. When a female layperson talk to a bhikkhu, should they look straight into the eyes of the bhikkhu? Because out there they say it's disrespectful if you're talking to a person and you're not looking at that person into the eyes. But here the Vinaya, if I'm not wrong, we should not be staring into the eyes of the bhikkhu. So which is which?
It's not in the Vinaya as far as I know, but it is an ancient custom, and it's an ancient custom that existed all over the world. For example, in England, if you looked at the king in the past, if you looked the king in the eye, then he could have you arrested, and I don't know whether he could have you shot. I think in Japan, if you looked at the emperor, then they cut your head off immediately, right? So that's a very ancient custom, and there's a story in the commentary to the Vibhanga of the Abhidhamma, where there's a man of poor family who becomes a very famous monk, and then the king goes to offer this man who's become a famous monk, offers him food, and the king is very respectful towards this virtuous monk, and then he comes out and then he says to the queen, "What did he look like?" And then the queen says, "You a man, how, and I'm a woman, if you a man don't know what he looked like, how should I know what he looked like?" Right? And then I asked my teacher, the Most Venerable Pawasaro, what is the meaning of this story? And then he told me it's because in ancient times one did not look at a respectable person in the face. And this one can see, in Myanmar at least, one can still see it. People of the old generation, when they report their meditation to the teacher, they don't look at him, right? They just like this, and then they report their meditation, and then they receive their instructions, and they answer, then maybe they have a discussion, and then they pay respect and never look at the teacher. And that is the ancient way of doing it, of not looking at a respectable person. There's a word for it. No, I can't find it. I have it's mentioned in the Sadhu's book, The Workings of Karma, right? This that one should not look a respectable person in the face. This is not considered polite. Okay?
Okay, the next question. If a bhikkhu moves a box of foodstuff or medicine which need to be offered, but is completely unaware of its contents, can they be offered to the Sangha?
Right, so here we have a box. It contains food or it contains medicine, and then the bhikkhu moves it. Then it becomes unallowable. And the question is it unallowable even though the bhikkhu didn't know what was in it? Yes, because a bhikkhu should not move anything without knowing what it is. Right? Bhikkhu should, in fact, one should never move other people's property without their permission under any circumstances. But especially for a bhikkhu, if there's a box, then he shouldn't move it without knowing what is in it. And that's why very often you will see, if people are moving things around, and the bhikkhu is standing and the lay people are doing all the work, and then some people complain, why can't the bhikkhu do any work? And it's because the bhikkhu can't move these things around, right? Because there may be some medicine in it or whatever. In my monastery in Myanmar, when bhikkhus receive parcels, then the kapias have been trained that they give it to a layperson, and then the layperson opens the parcel, and the bhikkhu doesn't receive the parcel at all, right? It goes straight to a layperson, and the layperson opens the parcel, and then they go through it to see if there's anything that's edible or medicine, so that the bhikkhu hasn't touched it. Okay?
Okay. The next category of questions are mostly general questions. With the first one, there are many differences in interpretation of the Vinaya practices among various traditions within Theravada. Why is this so? Is it because of different interpretation of the Vinaya Pali text itself, or due to differences in adopting different commentaries to the Vinaya?
Different Vinaya practices among the different traditions. There are many causes for it, but one thing is that this is predicted by the Buddha. The Buddha says in a sutta, which I didn't copy because it's quite long, right? But he explains to the Venerable Mahakassapa that in the future, bhikkhus who are not properly trained will ordain men to become bhikkhus. Because those men have been ordained by a bhikkhu who is not properly trained, they also do not become properly trained. And then those men ordain men to become bhikkhus, and then because those bhikkhus have been ordained by bhikkhus who have been ordained by bhikkhus who have not been properly trained, and that way the whole thing deteriorates. And then we have a very common problem in the modern days, all this business about that the commentary is not taught by the Buddha and blah 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 blah. And so that way many rules are misunderstood, and then many provide modern commentaries which are usually completely wrong. Because the way you can see whether a modern commentary is right or wrong is that it conflicts with the Dhamma in one way or another. So for example, once I read a modern commentary on the rule about making fruit allowable, right, Kapyan Karohi. Then the modern commentary said that this is Sila Bhatta Paramasa. This is wrong adherence to rule and right. And therefore we shouldn't do it because it's contrary to the Buddha's teaching. But it's not Sila Bhatta Paramasa. Sila Bhatta Paramasa means that one thinks that by doing certain rules and rituals, one can become purified or one can attain Nibbana or whatever. Right? And making fruit allowable is not Sila Bhatta. Right? The Buddha doesn't say that you can become purified by doing that. There are many, many rules and rites and rituals in the sasana. You bow down 3 times, that's a ritual. You take the 5 precepts, that's a ritual. There are many, many rituals in the Buddha sasana. That's not Sila Bhatta Paramasa. So that's just an example of how a modern commentary is wrong, because the person doesn't really know what Sila Bhatta Paramasa is. And this you get very, very often, modern commentaries that are wrong because they dismiss the ancient commentaries, say they're not taught by the Buddha, and that way the whole thing begins to deteriorate. And it's predicted by the Buddha, right? It can't be avoided. It has to be like that. It began already in the Buddha's time. Already in the Buddha's time, the Sadhama was going down.
Okay, the next question. In view of all these differences in interpretation, how should the lay person act when interacting with bhikkhus from different Theravada traditions, or even bhikkhus from the same lineage but adopting slightly different practices? Should the lay person just go along with whatever practices the particular bhikkhu is adopting, or should the lay person try to act according to the right practices that he has been taught and that which he believes in? Or should he go further to clarify or point out to the bhikkhu what he thinks would be the right practices?
Right. Now, there are also many lay people who have ideas about the Vinaya. Many lay people who haven't been bhikkhus, have never been bhikkhus, they have many ideas about the Vinaya. And this also can cause a lot of difficulties. For example, one widespread idea is that bhikkhus should only have poor quality robes. Bhikkhus should only have poor quality food, and only a little food. Bhikkhus should only have poor quality kuti, and bhikkhus should only have poor quality medicine. This is a very widespread idea in the Theravada sasana. But the Buddha doesn't say that anywhere. The Buddha says a bhikkhu should be content with what he gets, but he's allowed to get very delicious food, get a very beautiful kuti, where he's even allowed to wear silk robes. Right? There's nothing in the Buddha Sasana where the Buddha says that the bhikkhu should only get poor requisites. The thing is that the bhikkhu should not seek superior requisites unless there's a reason for it. Because, for example, if a bhikkhu has robes that are very uncomfortable for him and hinder his ease in meditation, he's allowed to seek robes that are more comfortable for him in allowable ways. Everything has to be allowable. So, one very big problem is that lay people have many ideas about the Vinaya because they don't know the Vinaya, they haven't studied it, and there are many more anapati. Apati means offense. There are many more anapatis than there are apatis, meaning there are many more factors that make an offense a non-offense than that make it an offense. And so this is one big problem, that lay people have ideas about the Vinaya because they don't know. Then we have within the same sort of, under the same teacher, there's slight variation. Usually that variation is not very important. So for example, some bhikkhus say that when you make the fruit allowable, then the bhikkhu has to hold it. And some bhikkhus say that when you make the fruit allowable, the layperson has to hold it. That's not a very important distinction, right? And if the bhikkhu asks you to hold it, then you just hold it, right? And if the bhikkhu says, I must hold it, then you just let him hold it. Because that's not very important, right? Because it's the making allowable that's important. So there may be some variations, but it says, should the layperson just go along with whatever practices the particular bhikkhu is adopting? It depends. If it's allowable, fine, but we should not go along with practices that are unallowable, right? If bhikkhu asks for something unallowable, you should not give the bhikkhu something unallowable. If the bhikkhu asks to go sightseeing, you should not take him sightseeing, right? So a skillful layperson can find a way of getting out of it. And then, should the layperson try to act according to the right practices that he has been taught and that which he believes in? Yes. For example, I knew one layman, he told me that there was a place where the bhikkhus, when they needed to go to the doctor, they would come from the different forest monasteries and then they would go to the capital city, and then they would stay in this temple, and then they would go to the doctor, right? So this temple was made for sick bhikkhus to stay in the capital city. And then the layman said that the monk in charge of that place wanted to establish an account, right, to collect money for this temple to be in charge of, to get medicine. And then the monk in charge telephoned this layman and said, we're establishing an account so that we can get medicine for the bhikkhus. And then the layman just said, Bhante, if any bhikkhu needs any medicine, I will offer the medicine. Then the bhikkhu again, no, I'm talking about making an account. Bhante, if any bhikkhu needs any medicine, I will offer medicine. Please just tell me and I will get the medicine. Right? He kept on repeating that. And then he came and asked whether he had done the right way. And that was completely correct. Right? So that no argument, but don't go the wrong way and just do what is right, but if there's any conflict, then just don't do anything. And should the layperson go further to clarify or point out to the bhikkhus what he thinks will be the right practices? Very dangerous, right? Because we should not teach people who have not asked us to teach. It may happen. I have a dayaka who's very familiar with me and tells me, Bhante, that's not allowable, and no problem, because I know him and I know his intention and everything, and he knows I don't get angry. But usually it's not a good idea to begin teaching the bhikkhus. Right? If you want to teach the bhikkhu and he's doing something wrong, then you can do it a roundabout way, but you have to be very sure that you know what you're talking about, because many lay people criticize the bhikkhus, right? And then they explain to me and there's nothing wrong, right? It's just that they've got the wrong idea. And so I have to be very careful. And also, in many cases, you don't know what is in the bhikkhu's mind. You might see a bhikkhu in a shopping center. What is the bhikkhu doing in the shopping center? You don't know. He might have a good reason. Right? For example, the Venerable Metananda here needs to get medicine, and the lay people, Bhante, we don't know. Can't we just take you to the shop? Okay. Then they take him to the shop in the shopping center, right? And then somebody sees him. What is that bhikkhu doing in the shopping center? Right? But you don't know why he's in the shopping center. Okay, make sure you know what's going on. There may be a perfectly allowable reason for it. Okay?
So, Bhante, so if the layperson is criticizing the bhikkhu or correcting the bhikkhu, is he committing an akusala act?
It depends on whether the layperson is angry, then it's akusala, and usually the person is angry, right? And so the polite way, because sometimes even as junior bhikkhus, a senior bhikkhu does something wrong, and then we don't say anything because we don't want to do anything akusala, and we might, right, when it's all forgotten and everything, then we might, Bhante, this rule, how should it be understood? And sometimes it has a good effect, sometimes it had no effect. So, okay, are there any other questions? Then we will take the last thing from Umahinda's. No, we will take that afterwards. No, we will take it now. Please read this. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Yeah, your teacher, Sayadaw Umahinda, his picture is out there. Right, is this no good? Is this no good? It's good. Why is it good? Why should the audience stand up? No, come on, more practical.
Because Bhante giving us a very pressure Dhamma.
No. Yes, because when the bhikkhu gets up to go, he stands up. Then you should not sit down. Right? That is the proper way. But before you do that, then...
Bhante, can I ask a question?
Yes.
If in that case, it is good for us to understand Bhante's Vinaya. Any books Bhante can recommend to us to read?
Yeah, but the problem is very difficult for lay people to understand the Vinaya. No, it's very difficult, because it's even very difficult for a bhikkhu to understand the Vinaya. It takes many years for a bhikkhu to understand the Vinaya. And for example, if a bhikkhu doesn't meditate, then it's very difficult for him to understand the Vinaya at all. Because many of the rules you only understand when you meditate. Because then you suddenly start realizing how subtle the mind is. And how just the smallest thing you might do can disturb your meditation. And that's why you get someone like the Power Sayadaw, he says, if in doubt, don't. Why? Because if in doubt and you do, and you go meditate and you're trying to develop samatha, and then there's that little voice that says, oh, was that allowable? Was that? And then you can't develop concentration. And so it's very difficult for lay people to understand the Vinaya, and they can misunderstand it. But one book which is on the whole reliable, on the whole, is not 100% reliable, is Venerable Thanissalo's book, The Buddhist Monastic Code. The only problem with his book is that he puts in a lot of his own comments. But if you just read the rule and then he says the commentary says this, the sub-commentary says this. If you just read that and don't read his comments, then it should be all right. But it's very difficult to recommend that book because there are many things that are a little bit dodgy, but it's the only one I can think of, because the translation of the Pali by the PTS societies is usually, the English is too difficult for ordinary people, because it was translated in the early 20th century and the end of the 19th century, and so the English is difficult. And then there's Umahinda's book, right? Umahinda's written a book in Chinese. I can't read Chinese, but from what I know of Sayadaw Umahinda, what he writes is correct. Right? And so I can't think of any other books.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, come back to the question just now. Bhante says that after the Dhamma talk, when Bhante departs, we better to stand up. Instead of stand up, my question is, how about if we kneel down and do in this position? Is it also okay?
That is up to you to decide. This is up to you to decide. Because the difference is that the teacher is standing and the pupil is not standing, right? And so, I don't want to tell you what to do or not to do. I just let you read what Umahinda has written, and then you must decide for yourselves. Okay?
Bhante, why did the Buddha address his monk hollow man? You know, he was addressing Bhikkhu Udai and the other Bhikkhu.
Oh, you ask very good questions.
Hollow man.
You ask very good questions.
Yeah, why hollow?
No, it's okay. Because one idea that people have is that the Buddha was just this smiling, friendly person all the time. But the Buddha would very often scold, because he explains in one sutta, he explains that sometimes he talks softly and gently, and sometimes he talks very roughly and hardly, right? And that's for the bhikkhu's benefit, right? So that he's talking to a horse trainer, and then he asks the horse trainer, how do you train your horse? And then the horse trainer explains, well, sometimes I do like this and sometimes I do like that, right? So sometimes very soft, and sometimes he uses the whip and very rough behavior towards the horse, right? And that's because different things need different approaches. And then the Buddha asks him, well, what do you do if the horse is cannot be tamed at all? And then the horse trainer says, I kill it. And the Buddha says, I do the same. Right? And then the horse says, what? You kill the bhikkhus? And the Buddha says, yes. And then he explains, in the Buddha's teaching, when the Tathagata refuses to teach a bhikkhu, that is the same as killing him. Right? And so now we'll just try to get this question. Sorry. Can you read this? Okay. Can you read it? No, you can't. Oh. Can you read it now? Yes, you can. Very easy. Okay, so this is Mogapurisa. And the commentary explains there are three types of Mogapurisa. Number one, there's no decisive support for path and fruition that means in this life. Right? So for example, Venerable Sudina, he was a bhikkhu who had sexual intercourse with his wife, and he was the reason why the first Vinaya rule was laid down in this Buddha Sasana. And his wife and his son both ordained and both attained a path and fruition, but he didn't. He was a very virtuous bhikkhu. He practiced very well, practiced two tangas and everything, but then his parents convinced him that he should provide an heir, and then he committed the first. It wasn't a parajika at the time, but he did that, and he did not have the parami in this life to attain nibbana. Another example is Udayi. He was the one, I quoted the rule where he's sitting with a woman, right? He was also called Laludayi, and his misbehavior was the cause for many rules being laid down, right? And he's the kind of person who has no support in this life for attaining nibbana. But for example, no, I don't remember if it was him. Udayi, no, it wasn't Udayi, sorry. Then we have number 2. That is the bhikkhu who has support in this life to attain nibbana, but has not attained it yet. And at that moment he's done something improper, and then the Buddha scolds him and says, Moga Purisa. But he will attain Magga and Phala in this life. So for example, Venerable Daniya, he was the cause for the second parajika about stealing. Right? He took some wood in the forest, and then he said that the king had said they could take. He took some wood from a workshop of the king's workshop, and then the king asked him, "How could you take that wood from my workshop? It belongs to me." And then he said, "Oh, but Your Majesty said that the bhikkhus could take anything they liked in the forest, the wood and etc." That's not what I meant, and you know that's not what I meant, right? And then because of that behavior, the second parajika was laid down, but Venerable Daniya later on attained Magga and Phala and became an arahant. And then there's also Venerable Upasena. He was the younger brother of Venerable Sariputta. Before he had 10 vasa, he ordained men to become bhikkhus and started having a following, and then the Buddha scolded him, right? It's too soon, right? I don't remember how many vasa he had. Right? You've been a bhikkhu for a very short time, was already ordaining men, and the Buddha scolded him and said, Moga Purisa. But later, he did become an arahant, and then he did get a huge following of monks. And then the third one is somebody who in this life has the parami to attain Magga and Phala, but then he's done something which has removed that. So for example, this is a teacher called Makali Kosala, who taught that there's no effort, there's no kusala, there's no akusala, etc. And the Buddha in a sutta, the Buddha calls him Moga Purisa, right? So he has the parami to attain Magga and Phala, but his behavior has disabled him from doing that in this life. Okay? Does that answer your question? Okay. Any others?
Talking about the pati not allowed to sit on luxurious chair, but currently modern times you have a lot of luxurious chair. You can't find those wooden or very bare minimum chair. By sitting on those more luxurious chair, any bhikkhus breaking any Vinaya rules?
We are allowed to sit on luxurious chairs. It just mustn't be too high, and mustn't be cotton wool. There are also some other restrictions, but otherwise we are allowed to sit on comfortable seats. There's no rule in the Vinaya that says the bhikkhu must sit on a hard seat and be uncomfortable.
Thank you.
And if we go to a householder's house, then we just accept what they, right? Then they ask us, please sit here, and we sit there, and because they have asked us to sit there, then it's allowable, no matter how luxurious it is. Because we can't say to the householder, I don't want to sit in that area, because when we go to people's house, then we just do whatever they ask, as long as it's allowable, and the Buddha has allowed the bhikkhu to sit on whatever the layperson asks them to sit on.
But I saw a lot of temples that the chair is a very luxury chair. But is it appropriate for monk to sit on luxury chair? Not only here. I saw a few places. Even at the Mangala Vihara temple, also the chair that is luxury chair. So I'm just curious that I hope that you don't feel offended that you help me to answer this question.
No, but it's not unallowable to sit on a luxurious chair. It's a high and luxurious chair, right? And for example, it's very common for people when they change their furniture, then they give all their second-hand furniture to the monastery. And then the monastery is exploding with old furniture, and then you get a sofa which is very comfortable. And if it's not too high, and if it's not cotton wool, and there are some other restrictions also, then it's allowable. Okay. Okay. Mr. Dewey has asked for you to share marriage. You have asked questions and listened to answers about the Vinaya and the relationship between bhikkhus and lay people, and with that merit you can dedicate to the departed. So please repeat after me. Idame ñātīnaṃ hotu Sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idame ñātīnaṃ hotu Sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idame ñātīnaṃ hotu Sukhita hontu ñātayo. And then you can make a determination that you, by this merit, may not meet fools in the future. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana patiya. Then you can make a determination that this merit may help you to attain nibbana. Idame punyam asavakhyavaham hotu. Idame punyam nibbana sapechya hotu. Mama punya bhagam sabba satanam bhajemi te sabbe me samam punya bhagam Labhantu sadhu sadhu sadhu.